The stars burned cold and distant above Zalari Prime, a planet rich with color but poor in mercy. It was here that humanity had tried to make its mark among the stars, hoping for respect, for peace, for a place at the table of the galaxies, great powers. But all they got was laughter. Lena Carter sat in the corner of the embassy hall, her fingers tight around the edge of her notebook. She wore the standard gray uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, clean and pressed, but it felt heavy today, like armor that didn't fit quite right. Around her, alien diplomats spoke in clicks, hums, and deep growls, their voices filling the chamber-like music from another world. Lena could understand most of them. She'd spent years learning their languages, memorizing their customs, practicing their gestures. She knew when to bow, when to nod, when to stay silent. She knew how to smile when insulted. She also knew how to pretend not to hear when someone called humans cute or primitive. Today's meeting was supposed to be about trade, a new agreement between the human colonies and the Varnax Dominion, one of the older species in the Galactic Council. But as usual, the talk wasn't about what humans could offer, it was about what they couldn't. "Your people still use solid fuel rockets?" said Thrextal, a towering insectoid diplomat with mandibles twitching in amusement. "Even our children outgrew those before first contact." A few others chuckled. Some laughed outright. Lena kept her face neutral. She watched the human ambassador. Ambassador Langley tried to respond with dignity. He was a good man, smart, well-meaning, but he was also used to being underestimated, used to smiling through insults. "Yes," Langley said, voice calm, "but we've begun integrating fusion drives into long-range transport. We believe—" "Oh, fusion," chirped Myrex, a floating jellyfish-like being encased in a gravity field. "How advanced? Did you invent this yourselves?" More laughter. Langley smiled again. "We did. With some inspiration from existing models, of course. It was a polite way of saying they'd reverse-engineered stolen tech after a minor war with a rogue alien faction 5 years ago. No one brought that up. No one wanted to remind the room that humans could fight if pushed." Lena looked down at her notes. She had translated every word spoken here, every joke, every slur, every subtle jab hidden behind diplomatic courtesy. She had sent reports back to Earth Command. She had warned them this wouldn't last forever. One day, someone would stop smiling. On the other side of the system, Eli Ramirez stood on the deck of the SS Dorado, a civilian freighter making runs between human colonies. He was a former Marine, tall and lean, with sharp eyes and calloused hands. He had left the service 2 years ago, tired of fighting wars no one remembered and defending people who barely thanked him. Now he was just a hired gun with a badge and a plasma rifle. The ship was old, its paint peeled, its engines groaned like an old dog waking up, but it flew, and it flew far enough. Eli leaned against the bulkhead watching the crew load cargo, mostly supplies, food, medicine, tools, all going to a small colony on Halcyon 4, one of the newer settlements outside the main shipping lanes. "Think we'll make it without getting shot this time?" asked Jessa, the ship's engineer, wiping grease off her hands. Eli smirked. "Depends. You fixed the scanners yet?" "Nope." "Then yeah, probably not." Jessa snorted. "You always so optimistic?" "I'm realistic. This route's known for pirates, and since we're flying a human flag, nobody expects us to put up a fight. That's kind of the point, isn't it?" Jessa grinned. "We sneak through, drop the goods, and get paid." Eli nodded. "Until someone decides to test that theory." He wasn't wrong. 2 days later, near the edge of the Halcyon belt, they picked up movement on passive sensors. "Unidentified ships," Jessa said, frowning at the readout. 3 of them, closing fast." Eli was already moving toward the armory. "Get ready to burn hard." They were too late. The attackers struck with brutal efficiency, a trio of pirate skiffs armed with plasma cutters and ion lances. They came in low, slicing through the Dorado's shields with practiced ease. "Shields down," Jessa shouted. Eli grabbed the comms. "This is unarmed civilian freighter Dorado. We're carrying medical supplies. Do not board." Static. Then, a voice crackled through, rough and distorted. Human trash, drop cargo bay doors or we blow you apart. Eli cursed under his breath. He knew this game. Pirates like to play with their food before eating it. We can't outrun them, Jessa said. Engines are overheating. Then we don't run. He moved fast, grabbing a portable defense turret from storage and dragging it to the observation deck. It wasn't much, but it had punch. Outside, the lead pirate skiff hovered close, preparing to dock. Eli aimed, took a breath, and fired. The blast hit the skiff's wing, sending it spinning off into space. The second ship opened fire, but Eli was already moving, ducking behind cover, recalibrating. Jessa rerouted power to the rear thrusters. I bought you 10 seconds. Use them. Eli did. He fired again. This time the second skiff exploded in a flash of light. The third ship hesitated. You want to die? Eli shouted into the open channel. Or do you want to live? The pirate ship turned and ran. Silence fell over the ship. Jessa stared at him. That was insane. Eli lowered the turret. Yeah, but it worked. No one celebrated. No one cheered, because they both knew this wasn't the last time, it wouldn't be the last attack. Humans were targets because no one believed they could fight back. But maybe, just maybe, someone should start proving them wrong. Back on Earth, Captain Nate Harper stood alone on the bridge of the USS Blackbird, a sleek, dark ship designed for stealth. Most of the fleet considered it outdated. Just another relic from the early days of human space travel. Harper disagreed. He'd been given command 3 years ago, with orders to patrol the outer systems and report anything unusual. The mission was vague, almost forgotten. No one expected much from the Blackbird. That suited him fine. He looked out across the viewport, watching Earth shrink behind them as they entered warp. Captain, said Commander Reyes, his XO. Earth, command says to stand by for further instructions. Harper nodded. Let them wait. Reyes frowned. Sir, they keep telling us to observe, to stay quiet. But something's changing out there, I can feel it. What do you mean? Harper didn't answer. He just watched the stars blur into streaks as the ship vanished into the void. Later that night in the lower decks, Lena sat alone in her quarters, reviewing the transcript of the council meeting. She had sent the full report to Earth Command hours ago, but she knew what would happen next. Nothing. No action. No response. Just more meetings. More smiles. More pretending that humans weren't being treated like children in a world of giants. She thought about the look on Ambassador Langley's face when Myrex had called them primitive. He had smiled, always smiled. But she hadn't. Her hand tightened around the stylus in her grip. There had to be a better way. There had to be a moment when humans stopped asking for respect and started taking it. She didn't know how. Not yet, but somewhere out there in the dark between stars, someone might already be trying. On the Blackbird, Harper stood in the sensor room, watching a data stream roll across the screen. Something strange here, said Lieutenant Cole, adjusting the filters. Signal burst from a pirate skirmish near Halcyon 4. Human freighter. Took out 2 enemy vessels before the third fled. Harper raised an eyebrow. Civilian? Yeah. Freight captain named Jessa Klein. Passenger list includes ex-Marine Eli Ramirez. Harper leaned closer. Interesting. Cole glanced at him. Orders? Harper smiled slightly. Keep watching. The galaxy laughed at humans. Maybe soon it would learn to fear them. And so the first chapter closed. Not with war, not with revolution, but with quiet moments of defiance. Moments where humans, overlooked and underestimated, began to prove that even in a universe full of ancient empires and godlike technology, they still had teeth, and they were starting to bite. The USS Blackbird moved like a shadow through the cold dark of space. Its hull was blacker than the void, its engines silent. No one saw it coming. No one ever did. Captain Nate Harper stood on the bridge, arms crossed, eyes fixed on the screen in front of him. The latest report had just come in, confirmed by Lieutenant Cole, and the ship's AI, Astrodot, a human freighter, had fought back against pirates and won. That wasn't supposed to happen. Humans were seen as easy targets, soft, weak. But this was different. Run that data again, Harper said, voice calm but sharp. Cole nodded, tapping at his console. Signal burst came from Halcyon 4 orbit. 3 pirate skiffs engaged the Dorado A. 2 destroyed, 1 fled. Harper leaned forward. Civilian crew? Yeah. Captain Jessa Klein, pilot and engineer. Passenger list includes Eli Ramirez, ex-Marine. Harper knew that name. He'd read reports on Ramirez after the Halcyon border skirmish 2 years ago. Good soldier. Left the service early. Didn't like politics. Now he was flying with smugglers? Interesting. Plot a course, Harper ordered. We're going to Halcyon 4. Reyes looked up from his station. Sir, Earth Command hasn't cleared. I'm not asking for clearance, Harper cut in. I'm asking for navigation. Reyes hesitated, then nodded. Course plotted. We'll drop out of warp near the outer belt. Harper gave a small smile. Good. He turned to Astra. Go dark. The lights dimmed across the ship. Power rerouted. Systems went silent. The Blackbird vanished into the void. On Zalari Prime. Lena Carter sat alone in a hidden room beneath the human embassy. The walls were lined with old tech, antique terminals, salvaged alien drives, and a single secure comms line that didn't go through official channels. She had been working, here for weeks now, ever since she realized no one in Earth Command was listening. They kept telling her to stay quiet, to observe, to keep translating, but she had found something bigger. Lena tapped at the keyboard, pulling up a new file. It was an intercepted message, one of many. She had spent nights decrypting it, cross-referencing alien dialects, matching signal patterns. What she found made her blood run cold. The message came from a high-ranking Varnax diplomat. It spoke of a plan, a coordinated effort among several species to contain human expansion before it became a threat. Containment. That meant more than just trade restrictions or diplomatic insults. It meant sabotage. It meant covert attacks. It meant... Warlena closed her eyes for a moment, breathing slowly. Then she opened a second terminal and began typing. She wasn't sending this to Earth Command. She was sending it to someone who might actually do something. Eli Ramirez stood outside. The Dorado leaning against the hull, staring up at the stars. The battle had shaken him more than he wanted to admit. Jessa was inside running diagnostics. They needed to get back to Earth soon. Repairs were getting expensive. You okay? She asked when she stepped outside. Eli shrugged. Just thinking. About what? How long before someone comes looking for us? Jessa frowned. You think they'll send more pirates? No, Eli said. Something worse. They both fell silent. The truth was, the fight had felt too easy, too clean. Pirates usually didn't attack freighters unless they were sure of victory. This time they hadn't been, and now the word would spread. Humans could fight back. That was dangerous. Jessa sighed. Maybe we should lay low for a while. Eli shook his head. Too late for that. As if on cue, the comms panel inside the ship buzzed. Jessa ran back inside. Eli followed. The message lit up the screen. Unknown origin. Encrypted. Decryption complete. Message. We need to talk. No name, no sender, just coordinates. Eli stared at the numbers. He recognized the location. It was deep in the Halcyon belt, far from any known shipping lanes. Someone knew what had happened, and they wanted to meet. Back aboard the Blackbird, Harper studied the same coordinates on his own screen. Looks like Ramirez got the same message we did, Reyes said. Harper nodded. Then we'll be there first. He turned to Astra. Cloak us. Full stealth. Aye, Captain. The Blackbird slipped into invisibility once more. 3 days later, Eli and Jessa arrived at the meeting point. They landed on a small asteroid base, abandoned and rusted. The place looked dead, but they weren't alone. 2 figures waited for them in the shadows. One was tall, dressed in civilian clothes, but with the posture of someone used to command. The other wore a standard Earth uniform, but with no rank visible. Eli recognized her instantly. "Lena Carter," he said. She smiled slightly. "Didn't expect to see you again." "You know her?" Jessa asked. "We worked together during the Halcyon negotiations," Eli explained. Lena stepped forward. "I need your help." Eli crossed his arms. "For what?" "To stop what's coming." Jessa frowned. "And what exactly is that?" Lena pulled out a small device and pressed a button. A hologram appeared above them, lines of text, audio logs, and encrypted files. "This," she said, "is proof that multiple alien factions are working together to suppress human development. They've been sabotaging our tech, manipulating our leaders, and funding attacks on our colonies." Eli stared at the data. "How long have you known about this?" "Long enough," Lena said. "And I'm not the only one who knows." She turned to the other figure, the man in civilian clothes. "This is Commander Harper," she said. "He runs the Blackbird." Eli's eyes narrowed. "You're military." Harper gave a small smile. "Used to be. Now I work for myself." Eli studied him. "So why reach out to us?" "Because you proved something," Harper said. "You showed that humans can fight, that we don't always lose." Eli let out a breath. "So what now?" Harper looked at Lena. "We start gathering people. People who know the truth. People who can help us expose it." Lena nodded. "And we find more evidence. Enough to make the galaxy listen." Jessa folded her arms. "You're talking about starting a war?" Harper met her gaze. "No. I'm talking about finishing one before it begins." There was silence. Then, Eli extended his hand. "I'm in." Jessa looked at him, then at the others. Slowly, she nodded. "Fine. Count me in too." Meanwhile, light years away, a secret meeting took place in the heart of the Varnax Dominion. High Chancellor Zortal sat at the head of a long table, surrounded by representatives from 5 major alien species. "The humans are becoming a problem," Zortal said, voice low and heavy. Another diplomat, a floating being known as Myrex, chimed in. "They're still weak, still primitive." "But they're learning," Zortal replied, "and they're not afraid anymore." "They won't last," another said. "We control their supply lines, their technology, their access to resources." Zortal shook his massive insectoid head. "That may no longer be true. One of our informants has gone silent. Another sent a final message before disappearing." "What did it say?" "It said, 'They know.'" There was a pause. Then Myrex whispered, "Then we must act quickly." Zortal nodded. "Agreed. Send the order." A signal was sent across the network. Hidden ships powered up, weapons systems activated. A new phase had begun. Back aboard the Blackbird, Harper reviewed the latest intel from Lena. "We're not the only ones watching," she said. "Someone else knows what we're doing." Harper nodded. "Then we move faster." He turned to Eli and Jessa. "Welcome to the team." Eli smirked. "Guess we're not just freight pilots anymore." Jessa rolled her eyes. "Great. Now we're spies." Harper looked out the viewport toward the endless stars. The galaxy thought humans were nothing, but now humans were watching. And soon the galaxy would learn the cost of underestimating them. The USS Blackbird floated like a shadow in deep space, its cloaking field engaged, its engines silent. It had been weeks since Captain Nate Harper brought Eli Ramirez, Jessa Klein, and Lena Carter aboard. Now they were ready to strike. Harper stood on the bridge watching the data stream across the screen. A distress call had come in from the colony world of New Haven 3 days ago. No response from Earth Command. No aid sent. That meant something was wrong. "Coordinates?" he asked. Commander Reyes tapped at his console. "Outer Rim, near the Varnax border." Harper frowned. That wasn't a coincidence. Lena stepped forward. "I've seen this pattern before. A quiet attack. No witnesses. No survivors." Eli crossed his arms. They're trying to erase them. Jessa looked up from her station. Then we better move fast. Harper nodded. Set course for New Haven. Go dark. The Blackbird vanished into the void. 2 days later they arrived. What they saw made their blood run cold. New Haven burned. Smoke rose from ruined cities. Fires still raged across the surface. Ships lay broken in orbit, drifting like corpses, and circling above it all. A pirate fleet. 3 large warships painted black with red markings hovered near the planet's remains. They weren't just pirates. They were working for someone. Harper clenched his jaw. They didn't just attack. They wanted everyone dead. Lena scanned the comms. No civilian signals, no escape pods, nothing. Eli stared out the viewport. This was a message. Harper turned to Reyes. Can we get close without being detected? Reyes checked the sensors. We can try. But if they have any kind of detection grid, we'll be spotted. Harper gave a small smile. Let's make sure they don't see us coming. He turned to Astra, the ship's AI. Cloak us tighter. Reduce emissions. Silence all systems except life support. Aye, Captain, Astra replied. The Blackbird slipped even deeper into invisibility. Down below, on the surface of New Haven, a single survivor crouched behind the wreckage of a fallen building. Her name was Mira Tate. She was only 17, but she had already lost everything. Her parents were gone. Her home was ash. She had watched as the ships came down from the sky, dropping death instead of help. Now she hid, hoping no one would find her. But someone did. Voice crackled through her old comm unit. Faint, static-filled. This is the Blackbird. If anyone is still alive down there, respond now. Mira's eyes widened. She grabbed the comm. I'm here. I'm alive. The voice responded quickly. Hold position. We're coming. Back aboard the Blackbird, Harper turned to Jessa. Can you land without being seen? Jessa smirked. Watch me. She took control of the ship, guiding it through the smoke-covered atmosphere. The pirates hadn't set up ground defenses. They thought no one would care enough to come looking. They were wrong. The Blackbird touched down in a clearing, hidden by trees and ruins. Harper led the team off the ship, weapons ready. They found Mira hiding behind a collapsed wall. She looked scared, tired, hungry. Eli knelt beside her. You're safe now. Mira shook her head. No one's safe. They said more are coming. Harper exchanged a look with Lena. Who said that? The ones who did this, Mira whispered. They called themselves the Iron Fang. Harper knew that name. A private mercenary group funded by alien backers, known for wiping out entire colonies. They'll be back, Mira added. Soon, Harper stood. Then we make sure they never leave. Back in orbit, the pirate fleet remained unaware of the Blackbird's presence, until the first explosion lit up the night. A missile struck the lead warship, tearing open its hull. Fire erupted into space. The second ship turned too late. Another blast shattered its engines. Chaos erupted among the remaining enemy vessels. Alarms blared. Fighters launched. Weapons powered up. But the Blackbird was faster. It moved like a ghost striking from nowhere, disappearing before retaliation could come. Harper watched from the command chair as the third and final ship tried to flee. No, he said calmly. You don't get to run. He pressed a button. A single torpedo fired. The ship exploded in a flash of white light. Silence fell. The battle was over in less than 10 minutes. No one on board the Blackbird celebrated. They had won, but the cost was clear. New Haven was gone, and somewhere out there someone had ordered this attack. Someone who thought humans wouldn't fight back. They were about to learn the truth. News of the battle spread fast. Across human space, rumors began to grow. A ghost ship had appeared over New Haven. It had destroyed an entire pirate fleet. No survivors. Some called it a myth. Others believed it was real. In the halls of the Galactic Council, diplomats whispered in fear. The Blackbird. had made its move, and the galaxy was starting to notice. On Zalari Prime, Lena sat in a secret room beneath the embassy, reviewing intercepted messages. One caught her eye. Report: human vessel, Blackbird confirmed active, unknown origin. Unidentified capabilities recommend immediate containment. She smiled grimly. Containment too late. She typed a reply and sent it to Harper. They know you're out there, and they're afraid. Minutes later, his response came back. Good. Meanwhile, on a hidden base deep in Varnak's space, High Chancellor Zortal stared at a report filled with questions. Where did this ship come from? He demanded. No one answered. We need answers, he growled. A subordinate stepped forward. Sir, should we send more forces? Zortal shook his massive insectoid head. No, not yet. He looked at the image of the Blackbird on the screen. This is not just another human ship, he said quietly. This is something new. He turned to his generals. Find it, capture it, or destroy it. Back aboard the Blackbird. Harper gathered his crew. We hit them hard, he said. But this isn't over. Lena nodded. They'll retaliate. Eli looked out the viewport. Then we hit them harder. Jessa leaned back in her chair. So what's next? Harper met each of their gazes. We keep moving. We keep striking. We show them that humans don't just survive. He paused. We win. There was silence. Then, one by one, they nodded. Because now, the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were no longer invisible, and the Blackbird was just getting started. The galaxy had laughed at humans. Now it was starting to fear them. News of the Blackbird's attack on the pirate fleet near New Haven spread fast. Across human space, people talked about it in secret. On Earth, diplomats tried to ignore it. In alien courts, leaders whispered with worry. A ghost ship had struck back, and it had won. On the Blackbird, Captain Nate Harper stood on the bridge, watching as new reports came in. More attacks, said Lena Carter, reading from a decrypted message. This time not just pirates. Organized strikes, coordinated. Harper frowned. Who's behind it? Lena looked up. Same players, Varnax, Myrex Dominion, some others we haven't confirmed. Eli Ramirez leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. They're pushing. Harder now. Jessa Klein tapped at her console. And they're not hiding it. They think we'll break under pressure. Harper shook his head. Then we show them we don't break. He turned to Reyes, his XO. What's our next move? Reyes studied the map on the screen. There's a supply convoy heading toward Halcyon Prime. It's carrying food, medicine, basic survival stuff. But it's being escorted by an alien warship. Lena nodded. If that convoy gets destroyed, the colony could starve. Harper gave a small smile. Then we make sure it doesn't. Across human space, more ships began to move. Not just the Blackbird. Human freighters started arming themselves. Small colonial fleets began forming. Smugglers who once ran from trouble now fought back. For years, humans had been told they were weak. Now they were proving otherwise. On the surface of Halcyon Prime, Commander Jessa Marlowe oversaw the arrival of supplies at the main colony base. She was a former military officer, one of the few still active after Earth Command had pulled most forces out of outer colonies. She knew the risks. She also knew no one was coming to help. Until today. A signal came through on the comms. This is the Blackbird. We're approaching orbit. Jesse blinked. They're really here. Minutes later, the Blackbird dropped out of warp. Cloaking field disengaging just long enough for the colony to see it. Cheers broke out among the colonists. Jesse stepped, forward waiting as a shuttle landed nearby. The hatch opened. Out stepped Eli Ramirez. Jesse smiled. Didn't expect to see you again. Eli grinned. Yeah, well, someone's got to keep you safe. Behind him, Lena and Jessa followed, carrying data drives and weapons. Jesse took the drives. We've got intel from other colonies. Attacks are increasing. Lena nodded. We know. That's why we're here. Jesse looked at Eli. You ready for this? Eli cracked his knuckles. Born ready. Back aboard the Blackbird, Harper reviewed the latest battle plans. We can't just protect one convoy, he said. We need to hit them where it hurts. Reyes frowned. You mean go after their ships directly? Harper nodded. Yes. If we take down enough of their patrols, they'll have to pull back. Lena spoke up. There's something else. I intercepted a message from the Varnak's High Command. Harper turned to her. What did it say? They're afraid. There was silence. Lena continued. They thought we'd stay quiet, thought we'd let them control us. Now they're realizing we won't. Harper smirked. Good. He turned to Astra, the ship's AI. Plot a course to the Halcyon border. Aye, Captain. The Blackbird vanished into the void once more. Light years away in the heart of the Varnak's dominion, High Chancellor Zortal sat in his war room surrounded by generals and advisors. The humans are escalating, one general said. Zortal growled. I see that. Another diplomat spoke. We must respond. We cannot allow them to believe they are equals. Zortal narrowed his insectoid eyes. They do not yet understand the full power of the Galactic Council. A third voice joined the conversation. But they are learning. Silence fell. Finally, Zortal spoke. Send the order. Increase raids. Deploy heavier forces. Show them what real strength looks like. The message was sent. Ships powered up. Weapons loaded. War was coming. But so were the humans. Back on Halcyon Prime, preparations were underway. Colonists worked together to build defenses. Old freighters were refitted with salvaged weapons. Fighters trained in secret. Eli stood on the edge of the colony looking out over the land. Jessa approached. You okay? Eli shrugged. Just thinking. About what? What happens if we lose? Jessa looked at him. Then we fight again. Eli gave a small smile. Yeah, guess we do. From behind them, Lena walked up. We've got movement. Enemy ships inbound. Eli straightened. Time to go. Hours later, the enemy arrived. Varnak's patrol fleet dropped out of warp above Halcyon Prime. Their ships were sleek, powerful, built for war. They expected an easy target. They didn't get one. As soon as they entered orbit, the Blackbird struck. It moved like lightning, firing precision shots that disabled engines and communications. One by one, the enemy ships faltered. Then the human fighters rose to meet them. Freighters armed with makeshift weapons. Smuggler ships with repurposed lasers. Even old cargo haulers joined the fight. The sky lit up with fire and fury. Eli flew one of the fighter shuttles, leading a squad of volunteers. This is insane, one of them said over comms. Eli grinned. That's the point. He dove toward an enemy frigate, firing a burst that tore through its shields. The Blackbird hovered above, coordinating the strike. Harper watched the battle unfold. They're holding their own. Reyes nodded. Better than expected. Harper turned to him. Then let's end this. He pressed a button. A final torpedo fired. The lead enemy ship exploded in a flash of light. The rest scattered. The battle was over. Halcyon Prime was safe. For now. Back on Zalari Prime, Lena sat in the hidden room beneath the embassy, sending another report. Humans are no longer waiting. We are fighting back. The tide is rising. She sent it to all known human contacts across the galaxy. Some would read it. Some would act. Others would wait. But one thing was clear. The joke was over. Now, humanity was making its move. In the halls of the Galactic Council, panic grew. The humans had won 2 battles. They were no longer invisible, and the Blackbird was only the beginning. High Chancellor Zortal stared at the reports. This is not acceptable, he growled. A subordinate stepped forward. Sir, should we escalate further? Zortal's mandibles clicked in anger. Yes. He turned to the War Council. Prepare the next phase. Back aboard the Blackbird. Harper gathered his crew. We won, he said. But this isn't the end. Lena nodded. They'll come back stronger. Eli cracked his neck. Then we'll be ready. Jessa leaned back in her chair. So what's next? Harper met each of their gazes. We keep going. We keep fighting. We show them that humans don't just survive. He paused. We rise. There was silence. Then, one by one, they nodded. Because now, the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were no longer laughingstocks, and the Blackbird was just getting started. The galaxy had underestimated humans for too long. Now the truth was coming out. Across human space, colonies were rising up. Ships that once ran from danger now fought back. Smugglers became soldiers, engineers built weapons, pilots trained for war, and at the heart of it all stood the Blackbird. Captain Nate Harper sat on the bridge, watching as reports came in from across the system. More ships joining the fight, said Commander Reyes, scanning the data. Colonial freighters, old military shuttles, some even converted mining drones into fighters. Harper gave a small smile. Good. We're going to need them. Lena Carter leaned over his shoulder, reading the latest intercept. This one's big, she said. I decrypted a message from the Varnak's High Command. They're not just scared, they're panicking. Eli Ramirez walked onto the bridge, arms crossed. They should be. Jessa Klein tapped at her console. We've got movement near Halcyon Prime. Enemy fleet forming up. Harper nodded. Then we move first. He turned to Astra, the ship's AI. Plot a course, we're going to pay them a visit. On Zalari Prime, Lena had been working non-stop, digging through classified alien files, tracking secret messages, and uncovering hidden truths. What she found made her blood run cold. She sat alone in the hidden room beneath the human embassy, staring at the screen in front of her. The data showed everything, a coordinated effort among several alien species to keep humanity weak. Trade agreements that limited access to advanced tech. Diplomatic deals that blocked human expansion. Sabotage. Missions that destroyed key research facilities before they could make progress. And worst of all, covert attacks disguised as pirate raids. All of it was planned. All of it was real. Lena took a deep breath and opened a secure channel. She sent the full report to every known human colony, to every trusted contact, to Earth Command. She knew what would happen next. Some would ignore it. Others would try to bury it. But some would act. Back aboard the Blackbird, Eli and Jessa worked together in the armory, loading new rounds into the ship's main cannons. You really think this is going to work? Jessa asked. Eli smirked. It has to. Jessa shook her head. We're outnumbered, outgunned. This isn't just a raid anymore. I know, Eli said. That's why we can't hold back. Jessa looked at him. You ever think about what happens if we win? Eli paused. Yeah, I do. He loaded the last round and closed the hatch. If we win, things change. Jessa nodded slowly. Yeah, they do. The Blackbird dropped out of warp above Halcyon Prime. The enemy fleet was already there. Dozens of alien warships lined up like wolves waiting for prey. Harper stood on the bridge, calm and focused. They want us to break, he said. Let's show them we don't. Reyes tapped. At his station. Enemy comms are open, they're broadcasting something. Harper raised an eyebrow. Play it. The voice that came through was sharp, cold, and filled with authority. Human vessel Blackbird, you have committed acts of war against the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Harper didn't flinch. Instead, he pressed the transmit button. This is Captain Nate Harper of the Blackbird, he said clearly. We know what you've done. We know how you've lied, how you've controlled us, manipulated us, treated us like animals. He paused. But we're not animals. We're humans. He looked around the bridge, meeting each of his crew's eyes. And we're done playing your game. He cut the transmission. Then he gave the order. All weapons. Fire. The Blackbird struck first. Missiles screamed through space. Lasers tore through shields. Explosions lit up the void. The battle had begun. Across the battlefield, human ships rose to meet the enemy. Old freighters armed with makeshift weapons, converted cargo haulers, even smuggler ships joined the fight. For years, they had been told they couldn't win. Now they were proving otherwise. Eli flew one of the fighter shuttles leading a squad of volunteers. "This is insane," one of them said over comms. Eli grinned. "That's the point." He dove toward an enemy frigate, firing a burst that tore through its shields. Behind him, Lena coordinated from the Blackbird, feeding targeting data to the fleet. "Take down their command ship," she said. "Without it, their formations will collapse." Harper nodded. "Understood." He turned to Reyes. "Target their lead vessel." Reyes locked on. "Firing solution ready." Harper gave the order. "Fire." A single torpedo launched. It struck the enemy flagship directly. The explosion lit up the sky. The rest of the fleet hesitated. Then they broke formation. Panic spread. The tide had turned. Back in the Varnak's dominion, High Chancellor Zortal stared at the reports flooding in. His mandibles clicked in anger. "This is unacceptable," he growled. One of his generals stepped forward. "Sir, we must retreat. Regroup." Zortal turned to him, eyes burning with fury. "No, we cannot allow this insult to stand." Another diplomat spoke. "They have proven stronger than we believed. If we continue this path, we risk total loss." Zortal narrowed his insectoid eyes. "Then we change tactics." He turned to his advisors. "We will offer peace talks." Silence filled the room. Finally, one of them spoke. "To humans?" Zortal nodded. "Yes, but not as equals. As subjects." He looked at the others. "They must believe they have won, that they have earned a place at the table." He smiled darkly. "Then we take it away." Back aboard the Blackbird, the battle was over. The enemy had fled. Victory rang across the comms. But Harper didn't celebrate. He knew this wasn't the end. It was only the beginning. He turned to Lena. "Did you send the data?" She nodded. Everyone who needed to see it saw it. Harper sighed. "Then the real fight starts now." Lena looked at him. "You think they'll listen?" Harper met her gaze. "Some will. Others won't." He glanced at Eli and Jessa. "But now the truth is out." There was silence. Then one by one they nodded. Because now the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were no longer pawns, and the Blackbird was just getting started. The galaxy had laughed at humans for too long. Now it was learning to fear them. Across human space, the truth had spread like fire. Lena Carter's report had reached every colony, every outpost, every ship with a working comms system. It told the full story, how the alien powers had worked together to keep humanity weak, how they had lied, manipulated, sabotaged, and attacked under false flags. And now, the humans knew. They were no longer blind, they were no longer silent, and they were no longer afraid on Earth. Leaders debated what to do. Some wanted peace talks, others wanted war. But one thing was clear. Humanity would not go back to being treated like children in a world of giants. Not anymore. Captain Nate Harper stood on the bridge of the Blackbird, watching as new reports came in. "Colonies are arming themselves," said Commander Reyes, reading from the latest data. "Some are forming their own fleets." Harper gave a small smile. "Good." Eli Ramirez leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed. "So what now? We keep hitting them?" Harper nodded. "Yes, but not just military targets. We hit their trade, routes, their supply lines, their belief that we're still weak." Jessa Klein tapped at her console. "We've got movement near Zalari Prime. Looks like a diplomatic summit." Lena Carter stepped forward. "It's about us." Harper turned to her. What kind of summit? Lena looked at the screen. Alien leaders, Varnax, Myrex, others. They want to talk. Harper raised an eyebrow. Talk about what? Lena met his gaze. Peace. There was silence. Then Eli snorted. Yeah, right. Harper didn't laugh. He studied the message again. They wouldn't call this unless they were scared. Lena nodded. Or unless they're planning something. Harper thought for a moment. Then he made a decision. We go. Reyes looked surprised. Sir? Harper turned to him. We show up, we listen, and we make sure they know. Humans aren't here to beg for a seat at the table. He paused. We're here to build our own. On Zalari Prime, the Galactic Council gathered in the Great Hall, a massive chamber carved into the side of a floating mountain. Representatives from dozens of species sat around a circular table, waiting. At the far end, the doors opened. Single human delegation entered. Captain Nate Harper led the way, flanked by Lena Carter and Jessa Klein. Eli Ramirez stood behind them, silent but ready. They walked across the floor, heads high. No one laughed, no one smiled. For the first time, in history, humans walked into a room full of aliens and no one dismissed them. Harper stopped at the center of the room. High Chancellor Xortal, leader of the Varnax, spoke first. You come as guests of peace, he said, voice deep and heavy. Is that true? Harper met his gaze. We came to hear what you have to say. Xortal nodded slowly. Then let us speak. He gestured to the others. One by one, the alien leaders began talking. They offered alliances, trade deals, joint research, projects, all framed as peace offerings. But Harper saw through it. This wasn't peace. This was control. They weren't offering equality. They were offering submission. Harper waited until they finished. Then he spoke. We know what you did. He said calm but firm. Silence fell. Harper continued. We know about the sabotage, the attacks, the lies. You tried to keep us weak. You failed. Xortal's mandibles clicked. That is not our intent now. No, Harper agreed. Now you want to use us. More silence. Harper looked around. The room. You think we'll accept your offers because you're afraid of what we can do. He took a step forward. But we're not here to bargain. He turned to Lena. She pressed a button. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed everything. Secret messages, attack plans, evidence of the coordinated effort to suppress humanity. Gasps filled the room. Xortal's eyes narrowed. Where did you get this? Harper smiled slightly. From your own people. The truth was out and there was no taking it back. Back aboard the Blackbird, preparations were underway. Harper returned to the ship with his team. They'll try to stop us, Lena said. They won't let this stand. Harper nodded. Let them try. Eli looked at him. You think they'll declare war? Harper shook his head. No, they'll try to break us from the inside. So doubt. Turn colonies against each other. Jessa frowned. How do we stop that? Harper turned to Astra, the ship's AI. Send a message to every human ship, every colony, every fighter. Astra responded instantly. Broadcasting, now. Across the stars, the message played. This is Captain Nate Harper of the Blackbird. The truth is out. The galaxy has tried to control us, to silence us, to keep us down. No more. We are not here to beg for peace. We are here to claim our place. Humans will not be ruled, we will not be ignored. We are rising, and we are united. Light years away, in the heart of the Varnax Dominion, High Chancellor Xortal stared at the reports flooding in. Humans were arming themselves. Colonies were declaring independence. Fleets were forming, and worst of all, other species were watching. Some were beginning to question their own place in the Galactic Council. Xortal turned to his generals. This cannot continue, he growled. One of them stepped forward. Sir, should we strike first? Zortal's mandibles clicked in anger. Yes. He turned to the War Council. Prepare the fleet. Back aboard the Blackbird, Harper gathered his crew. We've made our move, he said. Now we need to be ready for theirs. Lena nodded. They'll come after us hard. Eli cracked his knuckles. Then let them come. Jessa leaned back in her chair. So what's next? Harper looked at each of them. We keep fighting. We keep growing. We show them that humans don't just survive. He paused. We lead. There was silence. Then, one by one, they nodded. Because now the galaxy knew the truth. Humans were no longer invisible, no longer underestimated, no longer afraid. And the Blackbird? It was only getting started. In the years that followed, the story of the Blackbird became legend, its name whispered in battlefields and starports, its captain feared by enemies and respected by allies, its crew remembered as the ones who changed everything, and its mission, far from over. The galaxy had mocked humans until the day they fought back and won.